If this sound is familiar to you, then chances are, like so many others, you've played Space Cadet Pinball. It was one of the included games in some versions of Windows 95, and it stayed that way right up until the release of Windows Vista in 2007. For a lot of kids at the time, this game was their introduction to pinball, and for some, it might have even been the first video game they ever played. It may not have been my first video game, but it still holds a special place in my heart as one of my earliest memories of pinball. I've been a bit obsessed with proper mechanical pinball machines ever since Technology Connections did a deep dive on them 2 years ago, and I've been really keen to have a go at building one of my own, and for reasons I'll explain in a minute, I'm going to build all of the pinball mechanisms myself, so come along with me on this journey as I turn Space Cadet Pinball into a real-life mechanical pinball machine. This is going to be a huge project, so before we get too carried away with making things, we need to spend some time looking at the design. Compared to a lot of real pinball machines, Space Cadet is actually not that complex, and a lot of the hardware it uses already exists, so we shouldn't have to spend too much time reinventing the wheel. Because this is a game and not a real pinball machine, there will definitely be a few challenges that we'll have to overcome to make this work, but we'll talk about those later. Real pinball tables vary in dimensions from game to game, so I don't think sticking to a specific size is important. They range from about 5 to 680mm in width and from about 1 to 1.3 meters in length. Whilst I am going for a full-size design, I don't have that much room in my studio to keep this thing once it's finished, so I'm going to aim for the smaller end of the scale at 1 meter in length. Now, to work out the width, I will need to use the game's playfield as a reference. This is all going to be guesswork, but having a better quality picture of the playfield would make the process more accurate. Luckily, Space Cadet was actually just a demo from a game called Full Tilt Pinball, which runs at a bit higher resolution. As far as I can tell, the playfield is identical to the included Windows version, with the sole exception that the coloured text at the bottom of the playfield is a different colour. It's not a huge improvement, but it is a decent step up over the quality of the Space Cadet Pinball playfield, so this will definitely help. I'm going to scale the image to 1 meter in length and then skew the image to remove the perspective effect. Then I can just scale the width of the playfield until the elements like the pop bumpers are round. That means my overall width will end up being 560mm, which puts us right in the middle of the size range. Now that I have a scaled layout, I can start taking measurements from this picture to work out how big things need to be. Because the original game was drawn to appear 3D, there is some change in perspective from the top to the bottom of the playfield. There isn't much I can do about this, so I'm just going to base the positions of things from the top rather than the bottom, since I can clearly see the tops of all the features. I will still need to manually adjust some things to ensure that the ball fits everywhere it needs to, but I'll deal with that as I work through the design. Measuring the tops of the large pop bumpers reveals they're about 53mm in diameter, which is about 50mm smaller than any I've been able to find online. Even if I scaled up the playfield to 1.3 meters in length, the pop bumpers would still be smaller than the commercial options, so I guess we're going to be stuck making our own, so let's start with that. My aim for all of these pinball mechanisms is to stick as closely to how they originally worked as possible, while adapting them to be 3D printable and the size I need. My first revision of the pop bumpers used a micro switch in place of the spring metal and carbon contacts that are usually used. Because I'm going to be controlling all of the electronics from a microcontroller, I don't need the switches to be able to handle the current of the solenoids, and finding spring metal with pre-attached carbon contacts wasn't proving to be easy, so I thought a micro switch would be a better option. The switch has a cup shape attached to its lever, and this post that is connected to the bottom of the bumper skirt sits in the cup and pushes the switch when the ball touches it. This was working sometimes for me, but it wasn't very reliable because the micro switch didn't release at the same position it clicked, meaning I could never get the calibration just right. The lever of the micro switch also had some sideways play, which meant the post had to move much further in those directions to actuate the switch. For my second revision of the pop bumper, I switched over to a Hall effect switch. These aren't the same Hall effect sensors I've used in a lot of my past projects, because instead of sending back an analog voltage depending on the strength of the magnetic field, they simply provide an on or off signal like a switch. I modified the post to include a tiny 1x2mm magnet, which will trigger the Hall effect switch only when it's directly above it. That does mean the logic is inverted compared to the regular switch, but we can easily handle that in code. Getting the Hall switch to trigger repeatedly actually turned out to be a bit of a problem too, but at this stage I hadn't worked that out yet. In order to test this out properly, I'm going to need a way to drive the solenoid, and that's where today's sponsor PCBWay comes in handy. Getting PCBs like this made is as simple as uploading your Gerber files, selecting a quantity, color, and any special features your PCB may require. These solenoid driver PCBs don't require anything special, so all that's left to do is to hit the submit button, and before you know it, they'll be at your door. Right now, you can get $10 off on orders over $30 using my code PCBWay-CNCDan10. To use the code, click on My Coupons and type the code into the box and then click Apply to your balance. Be quick though, as there are only 20 coupons available. PCBWay has been a sponsor since just about the beginning of this channel, and they help support me and a lot of other creators in making cool projects like this for you guys. So the next time you need some PCBs or any of the other services they offer, make sure you show them some love and check them out at the link in the video description. My first thought was to use relays to drive the solenoids, but since this machine is already going to be packed full of moving parts, I designed these simple driver boards instead to avoid adding more moving parts to the mess. They use a MOSFET to pass power to the solenoid, and they also include pins to connect a switch with an optional 5-volt supply, so we can use them as a breakout for both a regular switch or the Hall effect switches I'll be using for some of the mechanisms. I've also included a little indicator light which will light up when the switch is triggered. This should make setting up the pop bumpers a much easier job, as I can adjust the Hall effect switch up until the light comes on when the skirt is in its resting position. And last but not least, I've included a set of connections for an addressable RGB light, so that the lights for the pop bumpers can be connected directly to these PCBs, hopefully making the wiring a little neater. I bought a bunch of these WS2812B LEDs that come pre-installed on a little PCB, which I'll use for most of the lighting on this build. Since the tops of the pop bumpers light up, I've made a spot in the top section for one of these lights. To diffuse the light, I bought a sheet of frosted white acrylic and used my Omtech Turbo 747 laser to cut some little circles to finish off the tops of the bumpers. Now for the test. Since I don't have a playfield to bolt these into yet, I printed out a little ramp and base plate section just to test. The ramp is sloped at 4 degrees, which is in the middle of the range of angles that most mechanical pinball machines used. And straight away, I noticed that the lever arm is sometimes getting stuck on the Hall effect sensor. I can't adjust the sensor any further away though, because then it wouldn't detect the magnet. I ended up reprinting a thicker version of the Hall switch mount with a hole for another magnet beneath it. The extra magnet is just far enough away so that it doesn't trigger the sensor on its own, but close enough that when both magnets are in line, it triggers the sensor and effectively increases the range of the sensor. That looks like it's working really well now. To make sure nothing is going to break quickly, I'll leave the test running for a bit while we look at the next mechanism. Next up are the drop targets. This is another mechanism that already exists, and there seems to be 2 main ways it's usually done. I've sort of blended both of those methods into one to make the design as easily printable as possible, so let's take a look. The targets themselves are just a simple print that's done with the part laying on its side to ensure the ramp section is as smooth as possible. They just drop into the main housing and this plate holds them in place. The spring connects between each target and the housing to pull the targets down, and there's a micro switch at the bottom of each one to detect when it's dropped. That's all easy enough, but we need to be able to reset the targets too, which is where it gets tricky. Commercial options all use a solenoid and some assortment of levers and pivots to reset the targets, but these big solenoids can get pretty expensive. Plus, it's 2026 and we have plenty of other options to choose from. These big hobby servos can be had for less than $10 each, and they have more than enough power to reset the targets. I used a bit of 4mm key steel as an axle and printed these arms and spacers and pressed them onto the steel. This means all the arms will stay in line without the need for screws. Finally, a pair of bearings supports this entire assembly in the housing, and the servo can just connect with a bit of bent wire. Now, the servo can lift all 3 of the targets back up once they've dropped. In order to test the drop targets, I printed another section of base plate with some tabs so I can mount it to the side of my table and roll the ball at it. Before anyone has a go at me about wasted material, all of these test parts are made out of leftover ends of spools that otherwise weren't enough to print parts. I've also kept the absolute bare minimum wall thicknesses and infill that I can get away with to minimise waste. Anyway, let's test it. I'm pretty happy with the drop targets, but the pop bumpers still need some work. Nothing is broken during the testing, thankfully, but they just don't seem to be as powerful as I thought they'd be. I could use a bigger solenoid, but there's 2 other things I want to try changing first. The first thing I want to change is the angled ring that hits the ball. The plastic isn't as hard as the metal rings that are used on traditional pinball bumpers, so I want to stiffen that up just in case the plastic is absorbing some of the energy. My other concern is the smoothness of this middle body section. When there's nothing in the way of the ring, it moves down nice and smoothly as it isn't touching the side, but when the ball is there, it pushes the ring back against the body of the bumper, which means it's rubbing two rough 3D printed surfaces together. I could try and sand these parts to get rid of the layer lines, but I have a new toy here that I think will be perfect for this, so I'll give that a go instead. This is the Form 4 resin printer by Formlabs. I was lucky enough to get my hands on one of these recently, so I'll probably be using it for a few parts throughout this project. I'm using the grey V5 resin for this print. Once the print is done, it goes into a bath of isopropyl alcohol for a couple of minutes, followed by a quick spin in the curing station to finish off the process. There are a few little support marks to remove, but once they're gone, the finished surface of the part is nice and smooth, which should allow the ring to slide more freely and hopefully transfer more of its energy into the ball. Let's see if it's an improvement. Well, that certainly didn't have the effect I was hoping for. The resin version is sliding more smoothly, yet clearly it's not firing the ball as far as the plastic version, so that obviously wasn't the problem. I'll grab some bigger solenoids and play around with the angle and height of the striker ring, so hopefully by the next video I'll have it sorted. For now, let's move on to the next job. Slingshots are a nice, simple mechanism that translates well to 3D printing. They consist of two switches on either side of a lever arm that attaches to the solenoid. I've used a bit of red resistance band for the rubber band part of the Slingshot, and I've 3D printed a bracket that mounts the switches and the solenoid all in one go. Then, all that's left is a lever arm with a secondary pivot on it to account for the arc that the arm follows, and that's it. I've got the switches adjusted forward until just before they click, which means it doesn't take too much of a bump from the ball to set it off. This one can use the same driver board that I built for the pop bumpers, so all that's left to do now is test it. I think this may be my favourite one yet. The level of power obviously varies depending on where the ball hits, but it has plenty of power when it hits in the middle because the ball makes it right off the end of the ramp. Now, the next one is going to be one of the challenges I mentioned earlier. The game has 3 of these pop bumpers that are on the elevated section of the playfield. There's nothing wrong with this from the game's perspective because plenty of pinball machines have elevated playfields with pop bumpers. However, these pop bumpers are even smaller than the ones we built earlier, and the ball needs to be able to pass below this elevated section when the return kicker shoots the ball back up the side, which is unfortunately almost directly in line with the left mini bumper. Because of all these factors, I had to stray pretty far from the original pop bumper design, but I think I've got a solution, so let's take a look. The top cover, ring, and body sections of the pop bumper are much the same as the larger version, but just below the surface of the playfield, I've joined both of the threaded rods for the ring together with this little plate, so I can pull the ring down from right below the main playfield with a single bit of threaded rod. This means I'll have just enough room to snake this return track in between the pop bumpers. I'll probably need to add a little flywheel or something here to help kick the ball up, but we'll tackle that when we get to it. There is a problem with this change to the pop bumper design though, because there's now no room for the same sensor mechanism below the surface. So now I need to come up with a new way to detect the ball. This one had me stumped for a while, but I made a pair of basic PCBs on my little CNC machine and soldered in these spring pogo contacts to the bottom PCB. Now I can solder a wire to both the top and bottom PCBs so that when the pogo contacts touch, they'll close the circuit and fire the solenoid. I'll probably have to get PCBWay to remake at least the top PCB at some point, as the bare copper will eventually tarnish and not conduct as well, but it will do for the test. I was a bit short on depth in these top caps, so I had to get a bit creative to make the LED fit. It ended up sticking at the top, meaning I can't just use a bit of acrylic as a diffuser, so instead, I'm going to print them on the Form 4. Swapping to a different resin on this printer is a breeze, as you can just swap out the entire resin tank and mixer arm, meaning the only part you need to wash is the build plate. I'm using clear V5 resin for this print, and I included these little triangle bumps on the inside of the lens because I knew the resin alone would actually be too clear to be a good light diffuser. The prints came out great, and I just needed a light sand on top to remove the support marks. With that fitted, now we can test it. This works way better than I expected. This one might even be too powerful for this little area, but I guess we'll see. While we're looking at the top playfield, there is one other little mechanism up here to look at. When the ball gets past the mini pop bumpers, it drops down this hole and back to the main playfield. But the ball pauses for a second or two before it drops, so we need to build a mechanism to do the same thing. I'm just going to use a little solenoid paired with a 3D printed slide, so that when the solenoid fires, it pulls the slide out of the way and the ball will drop. To detect when the ball is in position, I've made this 3D printed mount that will hold a micro switch right at the end of the ramp. Let's try it. Once the ball hits the switch, I've programmed a 2-second delay, and that looks like it works great. There's still heaps more work to be done, but I reckon we've got time in this video for one more mechanism. Let's build the flippers. I got screenshots with the flippers both up and down and compared them to find the flippers rotate about 70 degrees in the game. The flippers in the game have a white body, so I've printed mine in white PLA and I've manually hollowed them out to try and reduce their weight as much as possible. I've also printed the rubber bands in red TPU to match the game's design. Hopefully they'll provide the flipper with a bit of extra grip. The rest of the flipper design is quite simple. I've made a printed mount that holds a pair of 608 bearings for the pivot, and just like the drop targets, I've used a bit of 4x4 key steel as the shaft so I don't have to worry about using grub screws to keep everything in line. The solenoid mounts to the other end of the same plate and connects to the flipper with this little linkage, and that's all there is to it. Let's test it. The lever needs to be quite short to get enough travel out of the flippers, so I think this might be a bit too much load for this solenoid. It's good enough for a test, but nowhere near powerful enough for the real game, so I will have to pick up some bigger solenoids for the next video. That's most of the main mechanisms out of the way, but I still have a few to tackle in the next video before we can actually start building the table. But there's one other very important thing that I'll need to do, and I'll need your help with it. I want to find an artist to help me remake the graphics for this game so I can print them out onto stickers and make it as true to the original as possible. Before anyone suggests it, I don't want to use AI for this. I'm sure it can do it, but I'd much rather give this job to a real human being. Before I turn to a service like Fiverr, I think it would be much more fun for everyone if I can work with a fellow YouTuber. So if you're an artist or you know someone that you think would be perfect for this project, please drop me a message. Otherwise, let me know what you think of the project in the comments. I'm sorry this video took so long. It has taken a lot of work behind the scenes to get the design to the stage it's at currently. Now I've made a good start though. Hopefully the next videos won't take nearly as long. I'm really looking forward to getting this project complete, so I'm going to get stuck straight back into it. See you in the next one.